Well, listen, we're going to jump into this. People will be interested in this because they've been begging us to cover this subject for all year long, and we've stayed a little bit away from it because good Christians on either side of the issue have had these views. But we're going to talk about the vax, the jab, whatever you want to call it. But before we do that, I told you I was going to ask you this question. How asleep, how do I ask this? How asleep, first of all, have you U.S. citizens been to how much evil is going on? I mean, really, how asleep have we been? And then the second question is likened to it. How asleep has the church been as it relates to all the evil that's really been going on for generations? Have we just been sound asleep?
You know what we have to remember, Steve, is when people, anything that goes on, remember Jesus said, you are the salt of the earth. He's talking to the church. We're the salt of the earth. We preserve. We're the ones responsible. The world and the world in sin, they just do what they do. But the church is responsible. That's who God looks at to preserve this. That's who he looks at to do it. And we've allowed ourselves as a church to become, by and large now it's waking up, but we've allowed ourselves over the years to become very complacent, very seeker sensitive, to where power couldn't be manifested in the church any longer. If you stood up and said something about to give a prophetic word or a tongues interpretation of tongues, you were silenced or set down, and all in afraid of offending someone.
Right.
And they don't realize how arrogant that is, because the people came to church to see the power of God, not to see the power of God covered up. And so as a warrior, I heard people say this when all the shutdown and everything happened. They began to say something like this. They said, well, this has all happened and to bring an awakening to the church, and this has been the awakening to the church and so forth. I said, no, that's not what happened. What happened was the church was sound asleep. The church had fallen sound asleep, and while the church was asleep, the enemy came in and tried to smother it to death.
Wow.
And the church woke up in the middle of being smothered to death, fighting for survival, fighting to stay alive. And that's what you've seen. Not this lockdown and all this brought us into a great awakening. No, it didn't. It caught the church asleep and tried to kill it in its sleep. And we woke up fighting for survival.
That's a totally different perspective. Somebody will say, well, that sounds close to the same, but it's really a very different. When you realize you were about to be snuffed out, and the Word of God even predicted that the enemy would try to do that, and yet we were allowing him to do it. I have to be honest with you, when this thing first started and they started to lock down a big church, and Rodney Howard Brown came out and said, no, we're going to meet anyway. At first, and I think I've acknowledged this on the air one other time, I was critical in my heart. I said to someone, well, I don't think that's wise. I think if they want us to not meet, this was really early on. We didn't realize where this thing was going. Right, and I was obviously very undiscerning on that. And I was, had to ask the Lord, forgive me for judging it. But he did the right thing. Yeah, he stood up well before anyone else was willing to.
He did.
And so, our hats off to him.
Well, imagine laying there asleep and somebody just come in and put a pillow over your face. You would wake up. You would start waking up, fighting for your life. That's what the church did. Yeah. The enemy really thought he had caught it as a final time this time, and he meant to destroy it. And so, but we woke up in the middle of dying.
Man, that's
started
crazy.
Fighting back.
Well,